Good day, everyone. We are the Group 4 and our topic for today is about the stages of policy making process. The policy making process, the acts made by government, its decisions aim at solving problems and improving the quality of life for its citizens, are referred to as a public policy. Public policies are adopted at the federal level to regulate industry and business, protect citizens at home and abroad, assess state and local government and people like the poor through financial programs, and promote social ideals. From conception to conclusion, a government-created and implemented policy passes through numerous stages. Agenda development, formulation, adaptation, implementation, evaluation, and termination are the steps involved. As regards administrative policies, the executive branch takes the lead. The President of the Republic designs his or her platform of government or his vision for the country. On the basis of his platform or reform agenda, national policies and programs are designed. The National Economic Development Authority or NEDA board is the country's premier social and economic development planning and policy coordinating body. It is composed of the President of the Philippines as chairman, the Secretary of the Socio-Economic Planning and NEDA Director General as Vice Chairman, and the heads or secretaries of the different departments of the government as members. NEDA, it is to be noted though that the members of the board may be changed from time to time or as deemed necessary by the President of the Republic. These are the stages of policy process. The first is the agenda setting identification of issues or the problems, followed by the policy formulation, policy adaptation, legitimization, policy implementation, and the last is policy assessment evaluation. The policy cycle of the Philippines takes 5 steps, namely agenda setting, policy formulation, legislation, implementation, and monitoring according to Trillanes EF 2002. Firstly, the board conducts performance review of the prior year, considers emerging issues and concerns locally and intentionally, and also considers any shift in the policy agenda of the present administration. Secondly, the board formulates policies on education, health and nutrition, social welfare, housing, investment, infrastructure development, and etc. The process also includes the determination and review of the corresponding budget by the Department of Budget and Management. The output is the so-called proposed national budget, which is submitted to Congress for deliberation. Thirdly, the lower house, House of Congress, deliberates on the proposed national budget in 3 readings. Once done, they submit the proposed national budget to the upper house for deliberation, which also comes in 3 readings. After which, and once signed by both houses, the proposed national budget forwarded to the office of the President for approval. It becomes a law when the President signs it or when the President fails to act on it within 30 days from receipt thereof. However, if the President vetoes the proposed budget in whole or in a part, the same shall be given back to both houses for reconsideration. The veto power of the President may, however, be overridden by at least 2/3 vote in both houses. Otherwise, The proposed changes of the President may be effective. The passage of a bill for specific policies or programs follows the same process. Basically, proposed policies or programs by the legislative branch emanates from the executive branch.
Fourthly, the implementation of the aforementioned policy and programs are delegated to the different concerned departments of the government like the Department of Education, Department of Health, Department of Tourism, Department of Public Works and Highways, Department of Agrarian Reform, Department of Agriculture, National Housing Authority, Philippine National Police, etc. Finally, the NEDA board coordinates closely with the implementing departments to get feedback as basis for evaluation of the present programs and as reference for improvement for the next policy cycle. Next, the role of judiciary in the policy making or legislation process is the interpretation as to the legality or validity of the same. Apparently, the role is more of an indirect fashion. They may not be a direct participant to the process, but the knowledge of their presence and role as interpreters would somehow remind, frame, and guard to the legislators or legislative and implementers or executive to do their part well. Of course, their direct function as interpreters is called for when issues, disagreements, and conflicts arise from the implementation of laws, policies, or programs. Knowing and understanding the policy-making process of the Philippines as well as comparing it or its result of policy and program with that of other countries like Korea is of utmost importance to all stakeholders, including civil servants like us who is in a way participate in the implementation process. Knowing the strength and weaknesses of the policy making process would help us appreciate and improve the same. The role of judiciary in a policy making or legislation process is the interpretation to the legality or validity of the same. Apparently, their role is more of an indirect function. They may not be a direct participant to the process, but the knowledge of their presence and role as interpreters would somehow remind, frame, and guard the legislators or legislative and implementers or executive to do their part well. Of course, their direct function as interpreters is called for when issues, disagreements, and conflict arise from the implementation of laws, policies, or programs. Knowing and understanding the policy-making process of the Philippines as well as comparing it or its result of policies and programs with that of other countries like Korea is of utmost importance to all stakeholders, including civil servants like us who, in a way, participate in the implementation process. Knowing the strengths and weaknesses, the policy making would help us appreciate and improve the same. The best way to address the weaknesses or loopholes would be knowing the process and the role of each player in a society, sharing proper information with others, willingness to coordinate and participate, feedback mechanisms, and acceptance of changes. Practically, policy-making process is never an absolute or permanent thing. It has to be flexible and should be continuously reviewed and revised according to the needs of the present times or the current trends and situations. As long as there is cooperation and proper direction among stakeholders and actors, there is always a hope for improvement and development. That would be all. Thank you.